Us on a Thursday afternoon in downtown Charlottesville. Last night I was watching the NBA playoffs. I'm sitting in my bed watching LeBron James and Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers face Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. The game is in Tinseltown in Los Angeles, so it's a late start. And I have my phone beside me. I have a tall, ice-cold beer and IPA on my bedstand, and I'm gradually and casually hopping from my phone to the television as I watch LeBron, who's 40 years old, lose in a must-win game. Minnesota wins the game. Minnesota wins the series. LeBron James, the season is over. Luka Doncic, the season is over. As I'm watching LeBron in his 40th year on this planet succumb to Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves, I was reminded that the only undefeated team in athletics, it's not Michael Jordan, it's not LeBron James. The only undefeated team and player is Father Time. And LeBron yesterday looked old, and I think the world saw it. I watched it, and then I looked over my phone. I hit refresh on my inbox, and I get an email from John Reid's campaign. And I'm like, well, that's odd. It's 10:06 p.m. And the campaign, the team behind the lieutenant governor candidate on the Republican ticket that is embattled right now in a sex pics, gay porn, extortion scandal. He, the victim. Glenn Youngkin, the governor's team, evidently the culprits behind this alleged extortion. I open the email and I see from the campaign that today's interview, which was scheduled a week in advance, has been canceled. I was disappointed. I was disappointed because it was not me that reached out to John Reid's campaign for this interview. It was not Judah who reached out to John Reid's campaign to do an interview on the I Love CVille show. Their team, their campaign reached out to us a week ago and begged us to come on the show. I said, well, that's not really topic matter I want to cover on the I Love CVille show. I said, the election's far away. I'm not sure about that. They were insistent. They sent us one email, two emails, got my personal phone number and called me out of the blue and asked to come on the show. Facts on facts on facts. Finally, I relented. And I said, John Reid, sure, we'll make some time for him. We could do it in person via Skype. Let's set aside 15 or 20 minutes. Then they asked me a week ago if they can go the entire hour on the I Love CVille show. John Reid wants an entire hour. I said, fine, let's do an entire hour. That was decided last week. And then over the weekend, a story broke of negative proportions. John Reid on Sunday on Twitter, in a video that's now gone viral, explained to Virginians, to voters, that he was being extorted by Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia. John Reid, in this Twitter video on Sunday, claimed Glenn Youngkin, one of Youngkin's lieutenants, was utilizing deceptive social media tactics to publish sexual pictures and gay pornography references online in a smear campaign strategy to get John Reid to drop out of the race. Youngkin, allegedly, according to Reid, no longer wants Reid in the race because he does not have the draw of Northern Virginia voters. The former Richmond radio host does not have the base in Northern Virginia to help the ticket in totality. And it's a big year for Republicans. You got a governor up for election. You got a lieutenant governor up for election. You have an attorney general up for election. And when Pat Harity dropped out of the race, the 5-term Fairfax County supervisor, when he dropped out of the race late last week, this weekend, citing health concerns tied to his heart, it left John Reid as the only candidate on the Republican ticket, the only candidate in the primary. So he was the de facto guy that was going to go to November for the lieutenant governor seat for the GOP. Youngkin didn't like that. And according to Reid's camp, they allege extortion is happening. And that extortion is tied to sexuality, photography. That extortion is tied to smear campaigns and the nastiest we see in politics. I've covered this on today's show. I said, look, we're talking with John on Thursday on the program. I'll ask him these questions because it's in the media and it's fair game. I said, we'll give him a platform that's going to live in perpetuity online, that's watched and seen by everyone and anyone that's going to vote in this race. This program airs on every social media platform known to mankind. And I was going to give him an opportunity to talk about what's going down. Instead, the choice was to cancel, and instead the choice was to say no to media on these types of questions and wait to see how things play out. And ladies and gentlemen, I can't imagine being in John Reid's shoes. I don't know what it's like to be a man running for lieutenant governor whose past sexually is in the news and being utilized against him to keep him from running for lieutenant governor. Okay, that's what he's going through. I empathize with him. But I will say this, canceling interviews at the last minute at 10:06 p.m. on a Wednesday night with an interview scheduled at 12:30 the following day is a sign of weakness, is a sign of not following through on your commitments. And that's the last thing you want to do in an election year. If I was offering consultation to the candidate, I would say you honor your commitments, you go in front of the media, you answer the questions, and you ride the wave of martyrdom to potentially a finish line and a victory. You have an opportunity now to become a martyr. You have an opportunity now for Glenn Youngkin and his lieutenant to become a villain. His lieutenant, Glenn Youngkin, has now written and has a sworn affidavit that he released on his Twitter account with a timeline of events saying, I did not extort John Reid. I've been nothing but John Reid's friend. The GOP in Virginia is an absolute shit show right now, ladies and gentlemen, and forgive my language. But the grand old party and the Republicans have sexual pictures, gay pornography, he said, she said, phony social media accounts, a media war. And it's all happening at the very same time Trump is imploding the Northern Virginia economy. It's all happening at the very same time that the Democrats have very viable candidates that they are pushing. It's all happening in an election year in a bellwether state when the country is watching the Commonwealth. And Glenn Youngkin over the last 30 days is far from presidential. His management of Burt Ellis looks pitiful. It looks weak, childish, and backstabbing. The fact that the Attorney General has yet to make a comment about the John Reid soap opera, about Youngkin and the Restless, as Judah has monikered it, raises questions. Why hasn't the Attorney General said anything? The candidate for governor on the GOP ticket authored a 2-paragraph statement about as fluff a statement as you're ever going to see. And now Virginians are raising their eyebrows. They're raising their hands in the air. They're scratching their head, and they're asking the world, they're asking Virginians and fellow voters, what is going on here? A strategic error on Reid by not doing the interview and becoming a potential martyr. An apology is owed. I don't know what the hell is happening with Glenn Youngkin right now. And whoever's calling the shots with the Republican Party, Commonwealth-wide, you guys better have a come-to-Jesus moment really quickly. Because what's happening in the Commonwealth is humiliating and embarrassing, and that's putting it lightly. A lot we're going to cover on the show. I'm fired up. I don't like when people do not follow through on their commitments. You say you're going to do something, you do it, even if it's some adversity. I learned this a long time ago. You know what? The right way is often the hard way. I'll say that again. And I say this to my 7-year-old. The right way is often the hard way. Judah Wickower, studio camera on a 2-shot. I want to compliment 60 consecutive years of business for Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, East High Street, and online at charlottesvillesanitarysupply.com. They're doing things the right way, communicative, with honesty and integrity. The Vermillions are 3 generations strong, and that business right there is an asset to this community. Charlottesville Sanitary Supply. We'll highlight one of our divisions, Charlottesville Business Brokers, that has cash buyers ready to deploy capital for businesses right now. So if you're looking to retire or exit a business that you own, reach out to us and we'll see if we can broker a deal. We are doing a lot of deal brokering in 2025, and it's for obvious reasons. The world right now is tumultuous, and it's tumultuous because of these tariffs, because of these governmental cuts, because of the word uncertainty. If there's a word for 2025, 4 months into the year, that word, ladies and gentlemen, is uncertainty. And on today's program, we're going to depict that uncertainty on the show. I'm going to ask you these questions on the show. What's the impact Donald Trump has had on the Commonwealth 102 days into his second term? I'm going to ask you this question. What's the impact Donald Trump has had on Charlottesville, on Albemarle County, and on Central Virginia 102 days into his second term? How about this topic that was texted to me yesterday by a viewer and listener that I respect tremendously? He said, Jerry, nothing's free. Yes, Charlottesville Public Schools and yes, Charlottesville City Hall got the 14 acres for the Federal Executive Institute on Emmett Street at $0, a free donation from the U.S. Department of Education. But what happens if Donald Trump comes to Charlottesville or J.D. Vance comes to Charlottesville for a ribbon cutting ceremony and asks the community to kiss the proverbial ring? Think about the backlash and the firestorm of Trump coming to Charlottesville to have Charlottesvillians kiss the proverbial ring for giving the 14 acres to the public school system in the city of Charlottesville. We'll talk about that today on the I Love CVille Show. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll have a conversation about what is the story of the year locally. We are now 1/3 of the way completed of 2025. Can you believe this, ladies and gentlemen? 2025 is a third done. 1/3 of the way done. What is the story so far in 2025 for the greater Charlottesville area? That conversation on today's show. I got newspapers from Charlottesville, Richmond and Hampton Roads watching the program, multiple radio stations and TV stations watching the show right now. Judah Wickhauer, I weave you in on a two-shot, and I ask you the same question to start every program. Which headline today intrigues you the most and why? And perhaps you could characterize to the viewers and listeners when someone sends you an email, you're copied on it as well, at 10:06 p.m., canceling an interview because of some adversity. What goes through your mind?
Yeah, I was as baffled as you, and it would seem to me that now would be the perfect time to get ahead of this, to get, I mean, obviously he's come out with his recorded video statement, but you would think that, I honestly don't know. It is very odd. I'm guessing that quite a bit of discussion went into that decision. Otherwise, we probably would have heard sooner. I would like to think that they would have given us a little more lead time.
It's just a terrible look. It's an absolute bad look. And frankly speaking, from a public relations standpoint, from a crisis management standpoint, and from an optics standpoint, in a world where perception is reality, especially when it comes to politics, you have a chance to do a media tour right now in your most vulnerable moment. And if you are honest with voters in the Commonwealth at a time of the most extreme vulnerability possible as a human, you have an opportunity to build empathy equity. And empathy equity, and I hope the Reid campaign is hearing me right here. The Reid campaign, think about this when you're thinking about your political science because you failed here. Empathy equity goes a long way with voters in Virginia. You do interviews and you build empathy equity, and that lasts a lifetime. Dodging requests, especially ones that you initiated and have been on the schedule for more than a week, is disingenuous.
And I would think having more outlets to tell your story in would be a good thing.
Carol Thorpe, Bill McChesney, welcome to the program. Crozet, Richmond, Lynchburg, Southwestern Virginia, Fairfax, McLean, Arlington, Hampton Roads, Newport News, Williamsburg, Charlottesville, Ivy. Welcome to the broadcast. All right, third headline, put it on screen. We'll go Commonwealth-wide, and then we're going to zero in on the Charlottesville area with this question. We're 102 days into office right now for Donald Trump. How has Trump impacted the Commonwealth in totality? I want to crowdsource content from you, the viewer and listener. How has Donald Trump, in his second term, 102 days into office, impacted the Commonwealth in totality? And then we'll ask the same question, how has he impacted the Charlottesville and Albemarle County area? We can talk about protests in the shops of Stonefield. We can talk about the Federal Executive Institute.
Yeah.
Trump cuts with the Federal Executive Institute. Those cuts directly 14 acres and tens of thousands of square feet of real estate in the hands of the public school system for preschoolers. In 102 days, the man's impacted the world, tariffs. He's impacted the stock market. He's impacted geopolitical relations, China. He's impacted retirement accounts. Mm-hmm. He's impacted relationships with Canada. He impacted the Canadian election that just happened, without a doubt. In 102 days, the impact's been tremendous. I'm going to tie it to Virginia and then go micro with Charlottesville and beyond. All right, let's talk Commonwealth. First thing you got to point to is Northern Virginia. Goodness gracious, is there a pocket of the Commonwealth that's been impacted by Donald Trump more than Northern Virginia? I'll take it a step further. Ladies and gentlemen, is there a pocket in all of our country that has been impacted more than Northern Virginia by Donald Trump? The Department of Government Efficiency cuts have ravaged Northern Virginia's economy.
Yeah.
The DOGE cuts have created an inventory glut in the Northern Virginia and D.C. areas. People are losing their jobs. They're uncertain if they can keep their jobs. They're not going to stay in an expensive area of living if they don't have work. The economy has been gutted in Nova, and people are sprinting away from D.C. and Northern Virginia as if it was rats when the lights were turned on in a commercial kitchen.
I think we noted recently that Northern Virginia was one of the only places in Virginia with, I believe it was the cost of living going the opposite direction of everywhere else.
Because of this, you can make a convincing argument, viewers and listeners, that the Northern Virginia geographical territory has been impacted by Donald Trump more than any geographical territory in the entire country. Think about that. And if you don't think that impact is going to resonate with voters in an election year where a governor's up for election, a lieutenant governor's up for election, an attorney general is up for election, where 3 seats on the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors are up for election, where multiple seats on the Charlottesville City Council are up for election, where seats in Fluvanna, Orange, Nelson, Greene are up for election, school, it's going to ripple through all elections. And that's why the GOP Commonwealth-wide was so devastated, the kingmakers, when Harity, the Fairfax County institution, dropped out of the race because he had the Northern Virginia ties and was the Northern Virginia evangelist for the GOP ticket. How has it impacted the Commonwealth? Well, ladies and gentlemen, take a look at how the public universities in Virginia are bowing on bended knee, Boys to Men fashion. It's like a love song. Going to Trump, let's get the Boys to Men song singing down on bended knee, just begging Trump for the federal funding with their respective schools. In the year 2023, the University of Virginia, the top gardener, the top earner, the top receiver of federal funding, $384 million. That is in funding purgatory or limbo right now. And every university in the Commonwealth is down on bended knee with Boys to Men singing in the background, begging Trump to keep the funding in play. And those that do not listen to Trump get nasty letters from the DOJ and the Department of Justice, just like Jim Ryan and the UVA Board of Visitors received. Jim Ryan and the BOV received a letter from DOJ with DOJ letterhead on it saying if you don't eradicate, eviscerate diversity, equity, and inclusion in all capacity at your university, we will drop an iron-fisted hammer on Thomas Jefferson's grounds. And now Jim Ryan and the BOV, they're brainstorming. They're strategizing. They're trying to figure out how to keep $384+ million in federal funding while not going in the crossfire of Donald Trump, while maintaining their, some would call it, woke ideology with running the school. I'll tell you what, you can't have your cake and eat it too. I'm working on a real estate deal with some clients right now. We're approaching closing. There's some tenants that we would like to see convey in the deal. We like cash flow out of the gates with this deal. And if the tenants convey, there will be thousands of dollars of tenant cash flow after closing that can be used to cover monthly debt service once the clients acquire the property. However, my clients are looking to remodel the building in full. I said, how are we going to keep the tenants in play if the expectation is we're going to rip out the floors, we're going to paint the walls, we're going to change the windows, we're going to do some of the electrical work, and this may take weeks? Where are the tenants going to go to run their business? You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't gut and remodel the building so you can move into something pristine and still ask your tenants from day one to stay in their lease and continue paying rent.
Yeah.
Jim Ryan cannot say, I want the University of Virginia, a quote-unquote new Ivy League school, to maintain its diversity, equity, and inclusion mindset and mission, and I still want to receive the $384 million in federal funding from Donald Trump. That right there does not mingle or marry. You can't have your cake and eat it too. So Jim Ryan's left with this conundrum. Here's the conundrum the president of the University of Virginia is left, an embattled president who's had a fall from grace of late that is almost symbolic of Glenn Youngkin's, synonymous with Glenn Youngkin's fall from grace trajectory. Ryan's like, geez Louise, do I kiss the ring and keep the funding at the sake of my integrity and my mission as a leader of this school? Is my role as leader of this university to keep the funding coming in, even if that means the funding that is coming in is contradictory to what my personal beliefs are? Look at the conundrum he's in. He's basically had a proverbial fight with his partner, and his partner is asked him to go sleep into the basement and stay in the bed down there until you figure this thing out. And Jim Ryan's in the basement after having an argument with his partner, sleeping in the basement, saying like, why am I sleeping in the basement here? It's cold down here. I don't have my California King. I'm sleeping on a cheap double from Mattress Warehouse. I want my California King from Savvy Rest with my organic or ergonomic, what's the effing word? Pillow. I want to stay in my California King where the temperature's right in the body and the pillow and the mattress is molded to my body. I don't want to sleep in this crappy basement where it's 10 degrees colder under this crappy comforter. How do I get back to the California King into my room? And Jim Ryan's down in the basement right now contemplating this. Do I stick with my moral compass, or do I keep the funding coming to the University of Virginia from the teat of the federal government? That's the position he's in. Trump has impacted the Commonwealth in 102 days in ways you can't even imagine. Small businesses are ravaged right now. Small businesses. You want to take a look at how small businesses are being impacted? Take a look at the Russell 2000. Take a look at the Russell 2000 on the stock market. We're a little finance talk for you right now. It's getting hammered by what Trump is doing in these tariffs. You want a more Market Street look? Take a look at Main Street or Market Street or Preston Avenue or the downtown mall in Charlottesville. Ask a business owner what these tariffs are doing to them and how it's impacting them. Now, you want to put the next lower third on screen? And then we get to your comments. Bill McChesney on McIntyre Road, Carol Thorpe in the Jack Jewett District, Jeremy Wilson in Tennessee watching the program. Is that Cokesville, Tennessee you're watching in, Jeremy Wilson? Philip Dow in Scottsville, Elliot Harding, we got to get on the program, a political aficionado. We'll get to his comments. Stanton, Virginia, welcome to the show. Williamsburg, Virginia, welcome to the show. Eastern Shore, welcome to the show. Northern Virginia, thank you for watching the program. How has Trump impacted Charlottesville, Judah? Goodness gracious. Do we have enough time to rattle it off?
I don't know if we do.
Do I have enough show? Am I going to be doing the show until happy hour?
I think so. Where do you start?
Do we start with? Why don't we start with the? Do we start with the pros first? Sure. Judah's like saying, "Are there pros?"
Wait,
look at Judah. Judah, look at Judah right
Hold
there.
on a minute.
Judah's like, "There's pros."
Wow. No, I'm kidding.
Is there a pro?
Yeah, there are pros.
What's the pro?
He's cracked down on the borders.
Okay, immigration. Judah highlights the immigration. But at that point, do we highlight plainclothes officers going in?
And nothing's free.
Homeland Security officers in plain clothes with a JanSport backpack on their back, with a water bottle in their backpack, with a baklava on their face, a balaclava covering their face, going into Jim Hinchley's courthouse without documentation, without badge, without uniform, and kidnapping. Abducting. Okay, I apologize. It's not kidnapping or abducting. I'm sorry. Arresting.
For all
a 5'7" Mexican guy, El Salvadorian, and throwing him into a
what?
He was not a tall man.
I would say 5'7" was tall for what I saw in that
5'5". I mean, he was a very short fellow.
I would guess he was closer to 5, but I don't know.
5 foot fellow.
Yeah.
3 men arresting, throwing him into a van and whisking him away. Trump's clearing the borders, all right. Made Jim Hinchley's courtroom look like a kidnapping crime scene. That's the good, huh?
No.
What's the good, Judah?
You're putting words in my mouth.
What's the good, Judah?
The good is cracking down on people coming across the border unlawfully.
Okay. How about this for good? 40 gives them 14 acres in the Federal Executive Institute. Look at how the dominoes fell. Trump, put into office by Elon Musk. Elon Musk funds Trump's second win. Musk then leads the Department of Government Efficiency. Doge is cracking down left and right. Part of those dominoes that are falling, Emmett Street in Charlottesville, Federal Executive Institute. Been in operation for decades here in Charlottesville. Federal executives were being trained there. Trump said, "What are you doing with that?" Musk said, "What are you doing with that?" We closing that thing down, and we're going to close it down right now. They closed down the Federal Executive Institute, 14 acres, heart of Charlottesville, assessed at over $19 million. Market value probably closer to $40 million. Department of Education yesterday says, guess what, City Public Schools? Guess what, Juan Diego Wayne? Guess what, Sam Sanders? Guess what, City Hall? You guys are going to get the Federal Executive Institute for free. $0. Charlottesville, you can do a preschool here. You could take this swimming pool and turn it into a jungle gym. Let's get some monkey bars and some swings and some seesaws in that swimming pool.
Some what bars?
Monkey bars.
Oh, monkey bars.
Those are the things you climb, remember?
Oh, I love
you go
those
like
things.
this. You try to go across. You couldn't do the monkey bars, Judah?
Oh, I was great at monkey bars.
I know. I've seen you. You have the balance of a billy goat you have the balance of a mountain lion on the top of Carter's Mountain. You got great balance, Judah B. Wickhauer.
Thank you.
$40 million piece of property, Charlottesville City Schools, you can have for free. I can't wait to say I can't wait to see this on one condition. Me and J.D. Vance are going to be in Charlottesville for a ribbon cutting ceremony, and I want the mayor, and I want the superintendent of schools, and I want the president of Livable CVille, and the president of the Education Association Teachers Union at the ribbon cutting, kissing the ring.
Kissing the ring. Bowing at my feet.
Bowing at my feet. You tell me that Donald Trump is not going to utilize that as an opportunity for a PR event. Charlottesville, you hate my guts. You tarred and feathered me when I was running in the last time. You tarred and feathered me for when I was running this past time. You used the words I said on August 12, 2017. He shouldn't have said them. This is where Judah jumps in and says,
what? They were taken out of context?
okay, there's where Judah jumps in. Regardless, the man shouldn't even come up with those words. There were good people on either side in the first place. Whether they were taking out of context or not, it was idiocy. It was moronic. It was dummy. Charlottesville's been linked in the Trump first run. Charlottesville's been linked in the Biden-Trump second run. Charlottesville's been linked in the Trump third run. Charlottesville is not a city anymore. It's an adjective. It's an event. It's not a city. It's a national nomenclature because of its political explosion. Trump going to go to everybody. I'll give you that $40 million, Dr. Gurley. I don't know why Trump is speaking in a Southern accent now. He should be speaking in a New York accent. I'll continue with this. I'll give you that $40 million, Dr. Gurley. I'll give you that $40 million, City Council, but I'm going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony at the Federal Executive Institute, and you guys going to come kiss the ring. Can't have your cake and eat it too. That's the theme of today's show.
This ribbon ceremony is going to be huge.
It's going to be huge.
All my friends say it's going to be the biggest event ever.
It's going to be
Everybody's
huge.
Going to be there.
It's going to be huge. This ribbon cutting ceremony is going to be huge. Trump coming out in a blue suit with a red tie, looking all suntan and orange. Over there on Emmett Street amongst the cock block and the chicken alley and the fried chicken strip. For the many Commonwealth-wide audience that's watching this program right now, I see IP addresses not just in Charlottesville and Albemarle County and Central Virginia, but across the Commonwealth here. The Federal Executive Institute was 14 acres of land that yesterday was given to the Charlottesville public school system for $0 by the Department of Education. The Charlottesville public school system is going to use those 14 acres to build a preschool epicenter for the public school system here in Charlottesville. They'll also have administrative offices there. They literally got it for $0. The University of Virginia also wanted that money. UVA has an endowment north of $14 billion. So for Charlottesville to get it for $0, this was a big win for Charlottesville.
Yeah,
and
the only way they would have gotten it.
The only way they would have beat UVA was this scenario. Literally, the stars align for what the city manager has called a generational type impact, getting the Federal Executive Institute here. And then we, because we have long-form content and just don't do fluff journalism like legacy media, are going to ask the question, what happens when Donald Trump and J.D. Vance come to Charlottesville and say, I want a ribbon cutting and I want you guys to kiss the ring? Then Charlottesvillians are going to basically ask the question, geez, Louise, this 14 acres cost a hell of a lot more than what we would have paid, and we would have given them the $40 million in market value. Is kissing the ring worth more than the $40 million for Charlottesvillians and the left-leading activists that reside here?
I don't think I'd be surprised.
Deep Throat watching the program, his photo on screen. For the Commonwealth-wide audience that's watching the show, viewers and listeners that watch our Fair and Fine talk show, we've ranked them with their contribution levels. And Deep Throat's number one in the family. He says this on Twitter: I was in Washington, D.C. for work last week. I mean, downtown has really never come back from pre-COVID levels, but when I was in D.C. last week for work, it was very, very, very empty.
Wow.
Washington, D.C. That's Deep Throat, number one in the family. Comments are coming in quickly. This show airs on 15 Facebook pages, 15 Twitter accounts, YouTube, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, LinkedIn, the Rumble app, the Fountain app, Instagram. Can't wait to see what Carol says. I respect her comments tremendously. She's left a comment. Carol Thorpe, Jack Jewett District in Albemarle County says this: Jerry, for all the ways Joe Biden used and abused Charlottesville for his presidential campaign and term purposes, he never stepped foot into town.
Yep.
If we get a visit from Donald Trump for whatever the reason, it will be more than we got from Joe Biden. Fair point. And Joe Biden exploited Charlottesville and used Charlottesville like a call girl from the red light district with a $20 value. That's what Biden did to Charlottesville. And the point she makes is at least he's not using Charlottesville like a $20 call girl from the red light district with 15-minute time slots.
Yet.
Does kissing the ring?
There's time.
Carol also said the new Ivy League school moniker is almost as deceptive as the world-class city moniker. And Bill McChesney's watching on McIntyre Road. He says that the Latin guy that was arrested at a Jim Hinchley's courtroom was definitely below 5 foot tall.
He was short.
Yeah.
And I say that with all due
neither
respect.
Judah nor I are tall
short
guys.
Person.
Yeah, neither of us are tall guys here. But that guy was half the size of the Homeland Security henchmen, agents that were surrounding him.
Bros.
They're bros. One of them had
one guy had a pink shirt untucked.
The other
one had a T-shirt, a JanSport backpack.
A JanSport backpack with a Yeti water cooler stuck in the sleeve of the backpack.
Aqua-colored
Yeti water cooler.
Like, is that the new ice badge?
I think I saw some Teva sandals on one of them.
Yeah.
The other guy the leader was wearing some Birkenstocks with some socks on. Chad Wood kind of sounds like George Soros not funny when the rabbit has the gun. Bill McChesney says, post the pic, Judah Wickower. I have no idea what he's referencing there.
He sent me an AI generated photo of.
Was this the judge that was arrested?
No. This is a photo. Well, not a photo. It's President Trump with a pair of scissors, with a crowd of people and some type of building in the background. And it's very clearly AI.
Yeah, this isn't even his face, and the scissors are messed up. And we got to also be hesitant on what we post on the show that we don't have the rights to, because Facebook can take it down.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if there's a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Do you have that lower third? You do have that lower third on screen. Do we expect the Trump-led ribbon-cutting in Charlottesville at the Federal Executive Institute? And what is the actual cost to Charlottesville for a Trump-led ribbon-cutting here? Is it greater than the actual cost that Charlottesville would pay on market value if they had to pay for the property? Jeremy Wilson is in Cokeville, Tennessee. He watches the program regularly. And Mr. Wilson, thank you for watching the program. Mr. Wilson, Wilson. One of my favorite Fish songs was Wilson. He says, this country is a complete mess. What is black is white, and what is white is black. Human morals are upside down. Unfortunately, we live in the no longer United States, but the divided states of America. Jeremy says, countries of the world are scared of making Trump mad. No country leader feared Joe Biden. See, there's ways of leading, and there's ways of leading where fear generates certain results and respect generates other kinds of results. Leading with fear is a tactic, a managerial tactic without question. Leading with respect is a managerial tactic without question. Some managers and leaders choose different tactics to get the goals they want. But leading with fear does not always create the best results. Elliot Harding, watching the program, he says it was absolutely dumb for John Reid to cancel the interview with the I Love CVille show, because your reach in this area is like sympathetic to him being a victim to slander, and the interview could have gone back to issues pretty quickly. 100%. Elliot Harding is a smart man. Elliot, you are 100% right. John Reid campaign. Listen to what Elliot Harding, who's a political insider and a political aficionado, just said. With the reach of the I Love CVille Network and how I conduct interviews, it would have gone back to the issues and made John Reid a martyr and a sympathetic character that would have created empathy, equity for the candidate. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Very much a different message than a canned, 5-minute recital.
Did you see how the interview with Burt Ellis went on the I Love CVille show? When Burt Ellis was done being interviewed on the I Love CVille show, I had more responses than I can count that, wow, Burt Ellis came across as someone completely different than I thought he was.
I also had a lot more respect for him. Not that I didn't have respect for him before, but learning more about him grew my respect.
And John Reid, your camp, listen to this. The interview we did with Burt Ellis, who was fired by Glenn Youngkin from the UVA Board of Visitors. That interview was the basis for Lee Enterprises' coverage on Burt Ellis. They literally quoted the interview we did with Burt Ellis in their news cycle. And then when a Daily Progress reporter reported on the Burt Ellis fiasco and fallout, using our interview as the base for their reporting, all the other Lee Enterprises papers, Times-Dispatch, Roanoke Times, all the other ones, picked up the Daily Progress story and ran it. You missed an opportunity here, dude. Elliot Harding says this, I think council would swallow their pride if that was the condition, a ribbon cutting with Donald Trump. He says, I hope they would swallow their pride for a piece of property like that.
No doubt.
Do you think council would? Would Juan Diego Wade and city manager Sam Sanders, John Blair, you're on deck. I'm coming to you next. James Watson's on deck.
I think 100% council would. I don't know about Livable CVille.
President of Livable CVille and the president of the Teachers Education have to be at the ribbon cutting at the Federal Executive Institute as well.
That might be a hard sell.
John Blair says this. I love when John watches the program. Number 2 in the family, John Blair. Jerry, I would say that huge pro from President Trump is the crypto policy. He's establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve. He's also having his appointees repeal SEC guidance that regulated crypto-like equities. That last action is pretty huge, as even many Ds, though that was an enormous overreach by the SEC. He says that action is pretty huge, as even many Ds thought that was an enormous overreach by the SEC. John Blair also says this, and while it's to be determined, I think some of the early actions he's taken are going to lead to structurally lower interest rates by 2026. I'll say I was having this conversation with some finance guys before the show started. I was having this conversation with my wife yesterday. I think some of the actions that Trump is doing are potentially going to lead to a stronger economy, lower interest rates, and geopolitical relations that position the United States of America in a more leveraged position, a stronger position. I mean, the ties to China, dude, China is ripping off our technology. China is ripping off our government intel. China's got our dark, dirty little secrets.
Yeah.
They say you will really know somebody by looking at, if you go on Instagram and you click on Instagram and you click the search function on Instagram, and the content that's on the search function, oh, goodness gracious, I can't show the content that's on my search function on my Instagram account. It's squash players, animals, my family, and ladies in bikinis over here. But if you go to Instagram, you click the magnifying glass where you can search or discover on Instagram, that is like, is it Myers-Briggs? Is that the personality? Is that what it's called, the personality test?
Myers-Briggs test?
Yeah, that's the new Myers-Briggs right there. Discover on Instagram, because the algorithm knows you so well. I was having a conversation with my wife yesterday, that I think some of the stuff that he is doing will lead to lower interest rates.
Eventually.
And a stronger economy, and keep China from knowing our deepest, darkest secrets. Basically what's on our Discover portion of our Instagram account. China knows for all of us. I mean, geez Louise, they control TikTok. How much of our personal information is on TikTok? But we just have to get to that point of eventually. And how are we going to get to that point of eventually if you're a small business owner that's relying on lumber from Canada to build your homes or do your remodeling? Or how are you going to get to that eventually if you're a restaurant owner and some of your staff is tied to folks that may not legally be here? Or if some of your product you sell is tied to bananas that may not be grown here, and the bananas that are coming in now are astronomically more expensive than they once were because of tariffs, and you can't pass those costs on to your customers because they would revolt and not come back, so you're just selling goods and food and meals and dishes for break-even prices, and in the end, you're losing.
Yeah.
You lose that way because you have overhead. Mm-hmm. Like, how long until... There was a reason why Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and the head honcho at Apple, Cook, were all at the inauguration, kissing the ring. Okay, all these people were all at the inauguration kissing the ring because, ladies and gentlemen, they knew that Trump was going to come out of the gate with a bang from day one. And they wanted their stock, their wealth is tied to the shares they own in the companies they lead. They wanted their wealth, they wanted their bank account to preserve its balance, maybe grow its balance, and they knew they had to kiss the ring with Trump. So if these tariffs, this tumultuous policy over the next 12 to 18 months eviscerates the little guy and the small guy and the middle guy, that's just going to only create more market share for the big guy. It reminds me of COVID. Biden and COVID, and during the pandemic, when we were all told to lock down, when we were all told don't leave, it was the little guy that suffered. It was the big box brands that gained more market share. And as we came out of the pandemic, human and social behavior had changed. It was less shop local and more instantaneous gratification, and the box of goods dropped at your doorstep by big websites delivering instantaneously to your door. That's happening right now. We're going through this 12-month period of time. We're 102 days into it right now. If this 102 days continues, human and social behavior will change. It will change. And who gets hit in this change because of the intensity of the change, the immediacy of the change? The person most impacted by the intensity and the immediacy of the change is those that don't have the ability to pivot and adapt because they don't have the cash on their balance sheet to do it. And that sucks. But that's an effing fact. How has it impacted Charlottesville? Look at the protests that are happening left and right at Stonefield. How's it impacting Charlottesville? Look at what's happening at UVA. How many people are going to get laid off once the $20 million DEI spigot is turned off? You know what's the crazy thing? The $20 million diversity, equity, and inclusion spigot at the University of Virginia, you know how many white men are tied to the $20 million diversity, equity, and inclusion spigot? How many white, rich, wealthy men on staff in the DEI department at UVA? The sad, sad irony. The $20 million DEI spigot at Thomas Jefferson's University, if you look at the payroll profile, the employee profile, you wouldn't see much diversity, equity, and inclusion. You want to hear diversity, equity, and inclusion, or a better use of that $20 million? Chop it up for tuition and give it to students. $20 million, admins. Give me an effing break. How has it impacted Charlottesville, Judah?
We got another protest rally set for today.
James Watson watching the program. I wonder how many properties there are across the United States that have been given away from closing agencies. There may be other communities that are receiving federal properties that would be converted to schools. Absolutely, James Watson. Absolutely, J-Dubs. Great comment from J-Dubs. 100% right, James Watson. Kevin Yancey in Waynesboro, Virginia. Fear does not equal respect. You're 100% right, Kevin Yancey. Fear does not equal respect. Chad Woods watching in Greenwood, Virginia. Logan Wells, Claylo, Maria Marshall Barnes. Thank you for watching the show. 1 hour into the program without commercial break. Who else is doing this? Jason Noble watching the program. He says Trump, we got Jason Noble's photo to put on screen? He sent me one via DM.
Here it is. Jason
Noble, welcome to the family. Trump is facilitating political and economic sanctification. Philip Dow in Scottsville, Virginia. The cuts need to be done because of Northern Virginia being totally corrupt. He is draining the swamp, Philip Dow says. That's the Thursday edition of the show. You put the Jason Williford headline on. Former UVA standout basketball player and Tony Bennett lieutenant Jason Williford is linked to Georgetown University, where head coach Ed Cooley is on the cusp of hiring former UVA associate head coach Jason Williford. Jason Williford is about as good as a guy as you can find. He's come on the I Love CVille Network for the Jerry and Jerry Show. He helped build UVA basketball into a national champion alongside Tony Bennett, on Tony Bennett's hip, a key lieutenant. Jason Williford, all the best to you. We now have Isaiah Wilkins, hired by the Cal Golden Bears, University of Cal. We have Kyle Guy, hired by Nevada. And Jason Williford, hired at Georgetown. I would love to see nothing else than Ron Sanchez land a job, Chase Coleman land a job. The Thursday edition of the I Love CVille Show, where we spare no punches. No punches. Judah Wickower, my name is Jerry Miller. So long.